everybody, and welcome to another episode of the REI Rocketfuel podcast. Today, I am honored to be joined by Cody Schroeder.
Schrader, but you can pick whichever one you like.
I'm sure you've been called worse.
Yeah.
Local real estate investor, developer, property management company owner, pizza maker. What else do you do? I mean, what's the
Man, I try to dabble in a little bit of everything. Lately, I've been doing more stuff, letting other people take care of my money. So I've got some mobile home park stuff in the works. I've got some apartment stuff in the works. I've got some new construction going that other people are building for me, other people are managing. Even though I've got my own management company in-house, I do try to spread everything out.
Cool. I'm sure we'll get into all of that today. So, Cody, why don't you tell our audience, tell me, how'd you get started?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me on the podcast. Getting started for me, straight out of college, my wife and I bought a house on the west side of Wichita, and there's 3 years of nights and weekends just fixing it up, putting every last dollar that we had into it, and we ended up selling it 3 years later, and we made probably 50 or 60,000 on it, and got that back in cash actually once we sold it. So we probably made 25 on it, but when we're just putting all of our excess cash into it, it didn't seem like we were losing money the whole time, just because that's where the money was going. But
Sure.
When we sold it and we see a big influx of cash, $50,000, that helped us put a down payment on the next house that we were moving into. And then we had about $30,000 left over to buy our first couple of duplexes. So then going from there, I did the same thing with that house, but instead of spending 3 years on it, I spent about 11 months on it.
There you go.
We made, yeah, so same thing happened. We were just pouring all kinds of money into it. All the income from the duplexes was going into it, and we were living pretty frugally for those first 4 or 5 years. And then when we sold that, we made even more on that. I bought that one for 66, sold it for 166, and we'd put about 50,000 into it, but a whole bunch of sweat equity.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so that one worked out really well.
You guys were living in this house while you're fixing it up?
Yeah, I can't talk about it out loud with my wife because it brings back some bad memories. There was about 6 months on that second house. We were living in the basement. I thought it was going to be great, but we could not fit our bed down in the basement. So she was sleeping on a twin and I was sleeping on a couch for about 6 months. It was tough on the marriage, but we made it through.
God bless you.
Yeah, she is amazing. But we were no stranger to sacrifice in order to push the business forward.
Yeah. So
we made that money, and we were able to put 20% down on what at the time was our dream house out in the country that we just loved. And we've been there for about 4 years now. But in between, all that extra money went into real estate. As soon as I would run out of money, I had 5 or 6 duplexes at the time, and my parents, siblings, friends are kind of seeing what I was doing and seeing some of the returns, and so they've got some excess cash, and so they're coming to me saying, "Hey, can we be a part of it?" And so
that's cool.
I got some favorable deals with them, and was really able to expand pretty quickly just with my residential real estate portfolio.
Yeah,
so that was a brief synopsis of how I started.
That was that. I can only imagine all of like the layers and layers and hours that we could spend going into each level of all of that. But I know you're a busy guy and I want to value that. So we'll keep it short here. So we talked about how you got started. Let's talk about why. Why did you guys get started in real estate? What triggered you and your wife to live in a construction zone for 3 years and then into another construction zone for another year? Like why did you guys do that versus, putting your money in stocks or putting your money into a more traditional route?
Yeah, so I'm not going to have the same answer as most people. A lot of people read a lot of books. they hear a lot of stories, they watch this podcast or 10 other ones, and they get inspired to do that. They have a lot of tools to get started. Um, I didn't have a mentor. Unfortunately, looking back, I sure wish I did. I would have started out and done a lot of things differently,
Yeah.
or not done some things at all. So I didn't start with anything like that. My dad had one rental. It was his first house he bought. And then when they moved, they just kept it and rented it. And so I thought, I want to do something like that. I've always been just motivated by money in general, not any specific direction, but just turning $1 into two has always excited me. So it was really when I sold our first house that we were living in, that I saw that, man, flipping this house was great, but I worked
A
for
lot of
3
money.
years to make, yeah, 3 years, a lot of nights and weekends to make, 30 to 20, 25, $30,000. Um, but why don't I just buy a house that somebody else is paying for the mortgage on? And I can't do this. And it was an additional, what, 10 grand a year. So it's
Right.
not enough for all that work. It just wasn't enough to motivate me to keep doing that over and over. So I was like, how can I make this into something that's a little more self-sustaining? So I found myself a management company. Uh, I just vowed to never, my personal style, I vowed to never manage my own stuff.
Mm.
I always have somebody else doing it. And we'll talk about why I started a management company later, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Let's
but
let's
but
get it.
that's why I got started. I got that chunk of cash, and I just thought, I can multiply it fivefold
Yeah.
if I put 20% down versus throwing it in stocks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's it. It sounds like your answer is very similar to a lot of people's answers to that question, and it's leverage. Like
Yes.
you can take 50,000, you can take $100,000 and you can go buy $500,000 worth of real estate, or you can take $100,000, you can buy $100,000 worth of stocks. I like my odds leveraging that 100 into 500 and that 500 into 2 million and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and for so many other reasons too. I mean, you've got a ton of control over your own property. You
Yeah.
can, with a little bit of experience, and since then I've read dozens of books on the subject, listened to tons of people, been in seminars, all kinds of different things that, if you use that knowledge, you're building your own future. You're not, when you put stuff into stocks or some other things, you're letting other people build that for you. They do a great job, and
Sure.
that's why they've been successful, and all these different companies can approve an average 7% return over 50 years or whatever it is. Um, so they have a very steady return, some of the safer stocks, but a 7% return would just does not excite me when I can turn something
Right.
and double it in a year
Absolutely.
with just a little bit of knowledge and a
Oh
little bit
yeah.
of
I mean,
work.
you could, I mean, to be able to get a 14 or 15% return on your money in real estate, you could do that in 120 days. If you buy the right
Yeah.
deal and you rehab it and you sell it and you turn it quick, you could turn $15,000 to $20,000 into $50,000 to $60,000 in not a very long amount of time. And that's always been my favorite thing in real estate is I had seen that and it was okay, that can be duplicated and that can be scaled and that could be really, really big, really fast.
For sure.
If it's done right, of course. So what's the biggest before we get into management, I've never come across anybody that owns a management company that didn't start that management company out of necessity of managing their own portfolio. I've never met anyone that has a management company that doesn't even manage his own stuff. So I'm really curious to get into that. But before we do, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned on your journey? X amount of years. What was it? 6 or 7 years ago you started?
Yeah, in 2015, I bought my first
Okay.
duplex. In 2013, 12 or 13 is when I bought that first house.
Okay.
But
So coming up on 10 years, nine or
yeah,
10
yeah.
years.
So I'd say the biggest lesson, my first real loss was I was getting a little cocky. Things were working out. I hadn't had a deal go south yet. I was looking at a house and it was a little too pricey for me, but I think it was a wholesaler probably that said, "Hey, you want this one right next door?" And I said, I don't know, let's go look at it. And he's like, well, it's a piece of junk, but it's only $10,000. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, well, $10,000.
How
I've
could I
got
go
that.
wrong?
Yeah. And so I
Famous
go
last
look at
words
it.
of a fool is, "What can go wrong? How could I lose?"
Yeah. So this thing looks terrible. And I was like, no, quick paint job, quick re-roof on it. Walked through it real quick. The basement was full, almost up to the joists in trash. But I was like, okay, we clean that out. No big deal. I'll put $15,000 into this thing. It'll be worth 40 or 50. Well, when we cleaned all that trash out, there was significant structural damage in the basement that was just
Oh,
impossible to see before that.
sure.
So we spent an extra $10,000 or $12,000 on beams. That's doing all the work ourselves in house. And I ended up, when I sold that one, I ended up bringing money to closing, a couple $1,000 after paying off the loan and everything else. So I guess my biggest lesson is you're never too big to make a fool out of yourself and lose some money on a project just because you've done one 100 times.
Right.
Every house is a little different. Every house is built a little different areas, different financing at the time.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of different reasons why the same deal won't work next door to each other,
Right.
or the same house that you sold, you're going to buy it again 10 years later, and it's the same price, but it doesn't work now, and it did then. There's just so many different reasons. So um, having kind of your checklist of everything you want in every property, everything you need, and actually going down that, not taking anything for granted, like, oh, that basement's probably going to be okay. I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't even think about it. I just thought we'll clean it out and be good.
Yeah. No big
Um,
deal.
yeah, and so there's been a lot more expensive mistakes since then for different reasons, but that was my first real loss, and I just kind of learned from there that no experience is gonna the experience doesn't prevent you from making mistakes.
Yeah.
It's if you use that experience on every single deal, and don't just try to go fast and move on to the next one.
Yeah.
That's how you're gonna.
No, sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just saying that's how you're gonna avoid the mistakes is using your information and not just assuming it's going to be okay because the last one was.
Yeah. No, that's it. Every single every single guest that I've had on the show is really high level, doing a lot of deals, very successful business, and you're no exception to that. And every single person has the same answer or some version of that answer of things were going good. I thought I was bulletproof. I thought everything I touched was going to be magic, and I was just this real estate magician. And then I found out that I wasn't, and I got my teeth kicked in. And I've had that happen. I mean, stuff started going really well, and it was like, let's do this and do that and do this too, because we can just do it all. And it's like, those things we lost money on. We lost money on this. The core business was subsidizing those losses. And it's like, man, we need to stay disciplined, stay focused, be an inch wide and 10 miles deep on what you're really, really good at. And that sounds like the message that you're getting across. And if anybody were to go back and listen to the episode, that's the same answer every time, is that some point early on, they got a little cocky. They were like, I can't lose. Anything I buy, I make money on every time. I'm a genius. I've got it figured out. And then they get their teeth kicked in and they realize they don't have it figured out. So everybody along the way has got to pay the tuition. They've got to pay stupid tax somewhere along the way. Some people are fortunate enough to have it done really, really early on, so they don't make it once they get bigger. Some people are fortunate in the fact that it didn't happen until they could afford to lose $15,000 and not have to shut the door. So that's tough. So that's the biggest lesson you've learned. Is that also the biggest mistake you've made in real estate?
No, absolutely not. Biggest mistake I've made in real estate. So,
and you can't say that you wish you would have bought more houses earlier, because that's everybody's answer.
I can see why that would be a lot of people's answer. That's honestly never really been my answer, just because I always do what I think is going to be best at the time. I'm extremely blessed to be where I am right now, and if I'd done something different, I might not be. I might have tried to buy everything and the debt would have buried me because I made stupid deals because I moved too fast. You know, there's tons of reasons why I'm just so thankful for the path that you know, kind of has been laid out for me, and that luckily I've taken. I've taken advantage of good deals, and it's worked out. But if we're talking like the biggest money mistake, I've got a couple that one that's going to turn out okay. I'm working on a development, and I was trying to partner with some other developers. Didn't really work out too well, and being the magician that I am, I just kind of moved forward. We had that thing drawn up. I spent 40 grand on engineering. Did not have the funding to back that, so we couldn't get a bank on board, and we're just kind of sitting there in limbo for months while our loan on the land is just, you know, accruing
Racking
a little
up.
over $1,000 a month in interest that we're just paying out of pocket, me and another partner. And so we decided, you know what, let's go ahead and redraw this. Every developer, every builder that I talked to said, hey, I like the land, I don't like the deal because of the way it's drawn. I didn't know what I didn't know. And so we had it redrawn.
Ooh.
About halfway through that, we're about 20 grand into that. We decided that we didn't like that layout either. So
No.
we're about $65,000 into engineering
Into,
when
into
we took a
drawings.
big, just drawings that we're about to throw away. And this is about 2 years ago when we started this process. So we're just neck deep in this thing, and we take a big step back. I put my pride away because I kind of built these drawings off of what I thought was going to be successful, even though everybody was telling me it wasn't. Everybody, except for my partner, and he's just like, whatever you think, Cody, you're a
Yeah.
magician.
Yeah.
And
You're the
and
guy to pull it
so
off.
yeah, and so we're neck deep in this thing, and I finally just said, okay, I'm done doing my thing. I'm gonna do what everybody's telling me to do, and just decided that I didn't know as much about development since it's my first one. Put that pride down. We drew it a little bit differently, you know, got those drawings through, and I'm going to make a boatload on the development. It's going to
There
turn
we
out
go.
just fine. But in the meantime, I'm sitting here a year of wasted time,
60
and
grand short.
60 grand short, just out of pocket, you know.
Yeah.
Nobody's paying for that. So we got the loan refinanced. We just got all this through, and letters of credit are signed now. So we're moving forward with that. I'm going to make good money, but what a waste of time and money. So that was a big mistake
It could have
that
been
I
done and
could have.
already paid back and already over with, but you took 2 years to
Yeah,
discover.
and that was just a me thing. That was definitely on me for not setting my pride down earlier. Another big mistake that's just unavoidable, but even more expensive than that. We just had. I'm having a builder build some twin homes for me up in Bel Air, and we're kind of partnering on them. So there's no contract of an actual sale price. He and I are just working on it together, but he's doing the work on it. So we hired a company to do some concrete work, the basements in, because there's full finished basements in these twin homes.
Ah, cool.
And so they got the first one done real quick. The second one, they had walls formed up. The third one, they were doing footings on. We had 75 grand out to them, and they just completely botched it. The second one, they only filled the walls half full because they ran out of time with the pump truck. The third one didn't have level. Ended up having to pull out footings out of the ground. The second one, we had to strip the forms completely off and demo the whole thing. And we thought, well, at least we can save that first one because it was done. Well, we had some engineers come out, and we actually had the walls x-rayed. They didn't have the rebar in where they needed to. They had the whole building 6 inches too low, so it wasn't going to drain right. So we ended up having to demo out an entire basement. So at this point, we're negative, not just the 75, because then we got all the demo fees. We got to re-excavate everything
Right.
to make it right. So and they hadn't paid back like some of the concrete that they had shipped out there. They didn't pay. So we're like 150 grand deep on that. So I don't know if that's considered a mistake. I mean, what else do you do on the front end? You know, we even vetted their work. They said, you know, hey, go out and look at this project. This is one that we did a couple of years ago. We look at it, it looks fine. don't even think that was their product
No,
anymore.
I was just about to say, did you verify that was their project?
But you know,
Gosh.
they were the cheapest, but that wasn't the biggest reason we used them. They were the fastest. They could start in like a week, and everybody else was 2 months out on basement work because basements are just impossible to get people out.
Possible.
And you know, so I can't even tell you what I learned from that, other than we need to get maybe references
Yeah.
on subs that you're using. So if you're trying to hire somebody to do a remodel for you, you're going to do this flip. It's going to be super easy. You know, you're buying it for 20. It's got $100,000 ARV, and you hire somebody that's going to do $30,000 worth of work and make it perfect. You better verify with
Verify.
somebody else that's actually used them on a couple projects that they're actually going to follow through. Don't take their word for it. Don't walk through a
Yeah.
project that they said they did.
Right.
But actually verify with references that you trust. But that one was, and so I mean, is that one going to turn out okay? I mean, we'll probably come out a little bit above break even on them
Yeah.
across four twin homes, but it sure would have been nice to make that extra 150 grand.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, no, I could not agree more with the vetting contractors. I learned that on the first two houses I did. I bought two big houses and they needed huge rehabs. And I was like, I got this. I'm in real estate. I can do this. No one knows the game like I do. I can do anything I want. And the contractor that I had was like a mutual friend of another buddy of mine. So I knew him and I had like hung out with him and he seemed cool and seemed like a straight shooter. And I was all excited. Had I asked two people in my immediate circle, like if I'd have made two phone calls, two easy phone calls to people I'm talking to anyway, and had asked, hey, have you ever done work with insert contractor's name? They would have said, oh God, run away. He's this, he's that, blah, blah, blah. It's bad. He took me for 80 grand on two houses right when I started flipping houses. My first two projects that I ever did, I lost $80,000 between the two of them. All went away. He ran off with labor deposits. And had I made two phone calls, they would have said, oh yeah, he did that exact thing to someone that I know. Don't use him. But I was like, what could go wrong? I had my, I can, you know, I am the magician. Everything I touch, it's just going to work out. I was riding high and took me off the horse real quick for that. So
yeah,
that,
especially at the beginning.
Oh, that was every dollar I had spare laying around to lose. And it was gone in 2 weeks, gone. I just watched it evaporate. It was terrifying. Yeah. So 2019 was a rough year for Lawton for recovering that money. So, but it's done and he's not a contractor anymore. So it all worked out. So nonetheless. So tell us about your business today. We talked about how you got started, why you got started, you know, lessons you've learned and mistakes you've made leading up to this point. Where is your business today? What are you buying? Where are you buying? What are you building? Where are you building? Just kind of give us a 30,000 foot view, CEO level. What does your business look like today?
So, as much as a lot of people, just like you said, an inch wide, a mile deep, I really am. I used to be like that, and I think I just got bored a little bit. It did become easy, you know, a little mistake here, a little mistake there, but
right.
It became easy, and I didn't really love it anymore. At one point, I even told my wife, I was like, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. Like, I go into work and I kind of sit around and I would just take things that pop up, but I didn't really like go search for anything. It just wasn't a passion anymore. And as with real estate, you know, when things do pop up, it's like bam, bam, bam. There's like 4 things in a week, and I'm just buried. And I think it was 2-3 days maybe later that I told her, never mind, I love it again. Like let's keep going. I'm back on the ship. But so right now I've got a few apartments in the area. I don't have any apartments out of state. I've got a number of single family homes that I've bought from Lawton, or I've even found on the MLS for the right price. And then I've got a partner that I'm buying lots for a builder to build on in Colorado. He's building some cabins out there, and so we just buy the lot.
Where at in Colorado?
Yeah, so in the Fairplay area, so just
Okay.
south of like Breckenridge.
Yeah.
So it's about 45 minutes away from a lot of slopes, and so it's a good Airbnb area for people to buy. So national buyers are lining up to buy these things before they're even built.
I was gonna say,
So
you're selling the lots, or you own the lots and you're selling the lots to the builder.
So the builder, he doesn't have enough cash to buy the lots, all the lots as they pop up.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
he makes enough on the builds that he says, you know, I can't stand to see these things fall off the market, and I can't buy it right now. So I'm willing to pay you guys some interest on your money if you go ahead and purchase them. Then within 18 months, he's ready to build a house on it. And he's got kind of an innovative process of he builds the houses here and ships them out there on trucks.
Oh,
kind
no
of.
way.
So it's kind of like paneled housing, but they're these awesome cabins, large cabins with 18-foot ceilings. So they're awesome houses that he's able to build. Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Oh, that's bad to the bone, man. You're gonna have to show me what these look like offline.
Yeah, for sure.
Sweet.
But so that's one thing that I'm doing with a partner, and that's just a cash deal. We got to put the money in to buy the lots. We split it 50-50, and then when this guy's ready to build on it, he or ready to sell the house that's on it, we deed it over, and he pays us back plus some interest. That's one thing. The builder that is building for me in Bel Air, he's a pretty aggressive guy. So he goes out and finds lots for me actually. And he tries to get 8 to 10 at a time. So, cause it's more of a production type build. So, but we just bought or put under contract 8 lots in Park City that he's getting ready to build on. So he's got kind of this, like every couple months, he brings me a few more lots to buy. Awesome. So yeah, I've got that going. I've got this development down in Southeast Wichita that I'm doing with a partner that's getting ready to break ground on some
that's the
utilities and everything.
That's the 2-year project.
Oh yeah, and
2 years.
Either I learned my
drawings.
Yeah, either I learned my lesson on that, or else I didn't, because I've got another one in Valley Center that I'm getting ready to put under contract, a much larger one, to develop that. And then I've got the management company, obviously, we talked about Saving Grace Management. And I was just talking to a guy before this meeting here. I'm partnering on a mobile home park in Iowa that he's going to take over and manage for me, or he's managing for us rather. He's kind of the brains behind that deal. So that's on some of the ones that I've bought from you, either I keep them and rent them, or on some of them I do like a contract for deed or rent to own type scenario. Keeps my maintenance costs down to zero and helps with really steady income, but that's not obviously any sort of equity or net worth play. Every month my net worth on that building goes down a little bit, but it's steady cash flow. So
steady cash flow and then a payoff at the end.
Yeah.
If they are to refinance you out.
Yeah. So I don't put balloons on mine. I just take the steady cash flow till the end. If they want to buy it out, then great. I'm happy. But I got all that. I got one commercial building that's been real rough, sat vacant for a long time. Yeah. I don't want to talk about it. So I think that's it. I claim to know a little bit about a lot of different things, but I wouldn't be an expert on any one of those things. I don't think. It keeps it interesting for me, and I hopefully lose a little money and gain a lot of money on every single different type of venture, and keep moving forward.
I love it. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's people say, jack of all trades, but a master of none. But then they leave off the last half of that sentence, which is, but still better than a master of one. So that sounds like, kind of where your head is at. You used to be an inch wide and 100 miles deep on one thing. And then over time, you kind of expanded and expanded and expanded. But it sounds like it's still all real estate. Like
it's all real estate
related.
It's
still all real estate in your wheelhouse. And that's where your inch wide, 10 miles deep, 100 miles deep now is real estate. You've added more tools to the toolbox of development and commercial and apartments versus just onesie, twosie, single family at a time. But it's not like you took money out of real estate and went and started an insurance company, or took money out of real estate and went and opened a restaurant because you're just this like serial entrepreneur. You're still real estate.
Yes, it is all investment based. I mean, some people would say that building the houses and selling them isn't an investment, it's a job. I tend to agree with that, but at the same time, that's why I have a little bit of everything. I've got some investment stuff, I've got some job stuff, but my job stuff, I'm not spending the day out there with a shovel and a hammer. I'm paying other people to do that because I just don't have the time, and and I'd rather.
Your time's too valuable. If you're out there swinging the hammer, something went horribly, horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Very bad.
Yeah.
So,
that's
cool. No, I mean, a lot of people talk about, the average millionaire's got 7 or 8, different income streams. And so many people, I think, get lost in, okay, I need to get 7 income streams as fast as I can. But, look below the surface. Those millionaires made the not 99% of their wealth in one thing. And then they had all this money, and then they diversified. And now they have multiple income streams. But for so many of them, for so long, they were blinders on, narrow focus, inch wide, 10 miles, 100 miles deep on one thing that made them the money. So then they diversified. They had an exit. They sold their business, or they sold a portion of the business and got a huge capital injection. Now they've got all this cash. What do I do with it? Now let's go diversify and get into different income streams. But it all starts with that one core one that builds up, starts to run itself, and you sell it. Either way, it doesn't need you anymore. And you kind of get to your point where I'm kind of bored. Like, now what do I do? It's like, okay, now you go and diversify, but you have to get to that point first. And I think so many people get into it and they try to wholesale and flip and buy rentals and do apartment owner carries because they don't have the money to buy apartment buildings. So they're over leveraged, or they're using other people's money, but they've never raised money before. So they don't know how, and they're just running all over the place. And they're getting to the point where nothing is working. They're doing a lot of stuff, but nothing is working. Nothing's really scalable. There's no processes. There's no people. There's no product. There's no business. They just have 11 different jobs, but not one core business. So that would be, a perfect illustration and explanation to anybody watching of getting to that point to where you diversify. You didn't just jump into real estate and so, okay, we're going to build these twin homes and build this and redevelop this land and buy this commercial building and buy rentals and do flips and do this. You did one thing really, really well, built it up, made a bunch of money, were really successful, and then started to diversify once there was a core business to support the diversifications.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, my main focus at first was like Class D properties between here and a ton of stuff in Hutchinson. I bought a bunch in Hutch, 50, 60 units within a couple of years off the bat. And I mean, there was a couple portfolios that the bank had repoed that I got for cheap, and then bought some from the guy that they'd repoed it from because he had no money. And so he had some more that I basically stole from him. And then just other stuff because Hutch has a larger Class D market than Wichita as a percentage. And their stuff tends to be, maybe a small percentage cheaper on rent, but a large percentage cheaper on purchase price.
Yeah.
And so I bought a ton there. And then when, that was my main focus of everything. And then when all the prices went high, nobody cared if it was, and by then it's kind of Class C instead, because we've kind of built it up a little bit.
Sure.
But I did not make much money along the way because of all the maintenance and vacancy and everything else. But as soon as all the pricing kind of went sky high over the last 3 years, I started selling all that off. And that's exactly what you're saying. You sell that main hustle, and I sold a lot of property over the last 3 years, and bought some better investments, refinanced those.
Right.
Just came up with a windfall of tax-free cash on some great refinances, and partnering with the right people to get those appraisals up and the bank to be real comfortable. So you're getting 80% LTV instead of
Right.
65 on some other stuff that I've gotten when I first started, on longer term. So we got some great financing off of that. And so that windfall of cash is when I was able to start buying some stuff from you for cash, or
Yeah.
when I was able to, actually be interested in 80 acres in Valley Center, where I can stomach something like that versus
Right.
just being like, how am I going to do this? How many
Right.
partners do I need? And am I going to do all this work for 10% of the final product? Well, 10% is better than none, but
Absolutely.
is it, when you're doing all that work and you can spend your time and the little money you do have on something else? There's just so many different ways you can go with it. But luckily, yeah, when I sold all that stuff, I was able to bring in enough money, and some of it I exchanged, but most of it I just kept the money, pay a little bit of taxes, and able to put that into some better income producing property or land.
Yeah. Something maybe higher class, like you traded the class D, really high cash flow. Well, I guess you were putting a lot of money into maintenance, but in theory, D class property you bought for 25 that you rent out for 695 on Section 8, cash flow strong. But at least in Wichita, that house you bought for 25 and you've been renting it for 695, and you've put 20,000 into it over the last 10 years, the house is still worth 25,000 just because of where it is. And so, you're able to move out of the cash flow play into more of an appreciation, longer term, just safe money play, maybe in some nicer, more consistent, or more appreciating areas.
Yeah, and that's one of my goals. I've got 3 different goals with that land in Valley Center, and one of them is to build and hold some multifamily. And so that would be, Valley Center is a great area. We're right next to the high school, so it's kind of a slam dunk for building production houses that's kind of away from the nicer single family area.
Right.
So yeah, that's definitely one of my goals there.
That's way cool. That's cool. So all along the way, all the mistakes, the hires and the fires, the dopes and the nopes, everything along the way, why have you been so successful in an industry where so many people come into it hot and heavy and they're gone? Why have you been successful when so many others have? What makes you great is what I'm asking. What has led you to be so successful in a hyper-competitive industry where so many people are going after the same cheese, and you've been able to succeed?
So I've got a pretty simple, like when I was buying those Class D properties, I had like a super simple formula. And, after a year of using it and being cautious, and so I only get, 10% of the deals that I'm looking at, but it's still working. I'm making money off of them. And this, just my simple formula back then, I can do in 10 seconds.
Right.
This is what it rents for. This is what I'm going to buy it for. And it's going to work out. It's just going to be okay.
Yeah.
So once I felt confident in that, I don't need to think, I just act. And so I see something pop up, and this is back before everybody was buying as soon as stuff popped up on the market. But I see something pop up on the market, and I make I see the pictures and take a risk, but I make an offer before looking at it. I know that the bank is gonna take it. I put a little contingency in there so that I can still walk through it, but they're happy because I made an offer, and there weren't that many offers back then. And so the thing that made me, I guess, stand out back then was just being quick to action, I guess. I had confidence in my ability to make something, even if there wasn't something. That's what we're all doing, right? That's why you make money selling houses because there's a problem with it.
Right.
Can you solve that problem? Maybe. Can somebody else solve it better? Maybe. So let's sell it to them, because you can be a middleman there, you know. So every house that's a great deal, there's a reason. So can you solve that problem quicker, cheaper, better than somebody else? And I think it's just maybe natural that I've always been able to kind of shift and figure things out. Like, okay, that's not going to work. A couple of the houses I bought from you, I thought I was gonna do rent to own on them, and they sat on the market for a month and a half, 2 months, and that's not very long for some people, but for me, I'm just like, let's move, let's get this thing done. I'm tired of it sitting on my board. And so we turn a small office into a third bedroom, and we rented Section 8 and make a killing.
There you go.
I turn a garage, and the other one, I turned the garage into a third bedroom, rent it Section 8, make a killing.
Yeah.
So it just didn't turn out the way I thought it would, but it's like, okay, let's shift, adjust, make it work somehow. And if not, if it's going to be a non-cash flowing deal, I'm okay losing some money right now to be done with it and just moving on. So rather than make $30 and have risk for the next, $30 a month and have some risk for the next X time, I'm like, hey, I made a mistake. I can take the haircut now, or I can take it over the next 10 years. Let's just take it and move on and do better next time. So I've been pretty quick to action, I think. And also, I think, as you are more involved, you just know more people, you hear about more deals.
Absolutely.
And when you hear about something, after the experience that you have, you tend to be okay if it seems too good to be true, because it's like, okay, well, let's figure out why it seems too good to be true.
Right.
Even if it is, like, okay, well, let's make an offer on it and do something anyway. So
problem with it that needs solved.
Yeah. And if I can do that, then even if I'm getting lied to about rent rates, okay, well, we can do this with it instead, and I can get more than that in rent rate, So you can kind of see the stuff that seems too good to be true and decipher pretty quickly whether it is or isn't. And learning and learning.
I love it. I love everything you said. I love it. With the changes in the market, interest rates, inflation, pricing, everything where it's at, do you see your strategies and any of your businesses changing in the next 90 days, 6 months, year, 18 months? How far out are you looking right now?
My answer there is going to be different than most. Also, a lot of people have the mindset of, I want to get here in 5 years, which means I need to do this year, which means I need to do this month and this tomorrow. I really do take things a day at a time and a deal at a time. So I'm looking 5 years forward on this apartment, or on this development in Valley Center, but I'm looking 0 days forward on what you're sending me, because I cannot guarantee that you're going to send me one tomorrow that I love, or 10 in the next 2 weeks that I love. And then I'm like, crap, I don't have the cash for all that. What am I going to do? Who should I partner with? So I don't have like a specific strategy of, I need to buy this many houses this year to grow the way I want to. Everything is just kind of, for me, naturally grown and worked out. And so some people see that as maybe a lazy mindset, like, well, whatever happens, happens. And that's not really the way it is, because if nothing's happening, I'm bored out of my mind. And then I'm asking my builder, hey, why haven't we found anything? Hey, guy in Colorado, like, why haven't you sent me any lots to buy? Start looking for more land to develop. Maybe start bugging more people for
you look for busy work, just to feel like you're doing something.
Yeah. And maybe I dig back into commercial if I start getting bored. Like, let's find something that works there. So I don't have a specific goal. As far as strategies changing, it just changes how much I can pay for something. Interest rate goes up, I can pay a little bit less. And so that's obviously the way appreciation or inflation works. Sorry, wrong word. That's the way inflation works. That's why they're expecting a downturn, just because things aren't going to keep inflating the way they have been. So
Sure. Yeah, it's
I just pay
not
less. If other people
sustainable.
want to pay more, then I won't buy that one. But I get enough deals across my table that I do get to pick and choose what I
Sure.
want and what I think is going to
Especially
work.
where
And
you're at now. Like
yeah,
you don't need to go chase down deals this month. It's cool if they happen. That's nice. But you don't like you're not beating the bushes, reaching out to wholesalers and agents and being like, hey, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? What do you got?
yeah, and it's definitely interesting how perspective changes things, and just the different deals you do. My first apartment, I was like, my wife is Jessica. I said, Jess, this is going to be a life changer. It's going to be this is going to be the deal of my lifetime. And then my second apartment, I was like, this one's even better. This is going to be amazing. And they both were. And then the first development was going to be, so great. And now I'm saying the same exact thing about this one, because my development in Southeast Wichita is 20 acres. This one in Valley Center is 80 acres, a little over 80 acres. And I'm telling her, like, man, if this thing works out the way I'm sketching it out to work, I don't have to do anything else. I
Retire.
just, yeah, invest this into, or I've got all those multifamilies that I'm doing. But the truth is, I mean, it's all perspective. If I make this much money on that, then I'll need to make this much money on the next one to be.
Right.
So it's kind of nerve wracking thinking, man, how am I going to find
Outdo
another
this.
exciting deal
Yeah.
after this one's so exciting? But after you start doing those things, after a 50 unit apartment complex seems reasonable, or even definitely possible that you can go do that, then as soon as it pops up, you're like, man, I wish it was bigger. And so
Yeah.
you
You're
start
like,
just
oh
setting
man,
your sight. Yeah.
man, it's only 60 units. Like I'm looking for 100 or
Yeah.
more. Like
Yeah. You start,
you're always
so your
moving the
eyes just,
goal line.
yeah. And you
Yeah,
don't
the line
realize you're
always
doing it
moves.
until those deals start happening. But, um, yeah, I mean, the real answer to your question is, I want to keep doing what I'm doing, keep grabbing the deals that I can, and, you know, um, just pay less if the interest rate is more, or else raise rents. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest problems with a lot of property management companies is old Eddie's been in the property for 10 years, and so I need to keep his rent at 365,000 or $365 a month. And
Yeah.
it's like, well,
That's an
Eddie's not going to find
$800 a
that.
month rental. What are you
Yeah,
gonna do with it?
Eddie's not going to find that anywhere else. And so you're, devaluing everybody else's property by doing that. But we're starting to, in the last year or so, starting to finally see rent rates going up. And so that's less of a problem now, but we're still behind the curve of the property values, because
For sure.
people's expected returns are lower
Proportionate to
now
rent.
than they used to be.
Yeah.
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 What's your best piece of advice for a new investor? They've decided that they're going to start investing in real estate. They're not on the fence. They're doing it. They've either bought their first deal, or they're working on their first or second deal. They're early stages, but they are doing it, or they've made the decision to start doing it. What's your best piece of advice for them?
I really meant it when I said I wouldn't change anything about my path. So my best piece of advice is buy a house or a duplex that needs work, and you live in that thing. You live in it and you hate your life for a year, and you fix it up yourself. You save as much money as you can. Um, However you get it financed, get it financed. But I mean, the first step is just deciding that you're going to do it and actually doing it. So many people that I've talked to, they're like, oh man, you do real estate? That's awesome. I want to do this someday. And I don't roll my eyes at people, because everybody has dreams, but at the same time, I'm like, I hear it so often. I want to do this someday. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to do that someday, and then I did it.
Yeah.
Like,
Then you just do
are
it.
you gonna do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I would really say it's nerve wracking for somebody to, you live in one place, they have this other investment. What's going to happen over there? Is it actually going to get fixed? Is it actually going to rent when it's done? What's going on at the property? Is going to get broken into? Just find a place that you're okay living in. Um, it's not great. It doesn't have to be the slums though, but find a place that you can live there, fix it up, ask your wife to forgive you later. And and if you can live there for a year, you're not going to pay any capital gains on what you sold it for. You can make $100,000. And I don't remember what the limit is anymore, because I haven't done that in a number of years now, but you can make a boatload of money and pay no capital gains tax on it. And so if we'd been a little more patient, I wish we would have done it a couple more times.
Yeah, more times.
Um, Yeah, we had a kid by the time we were moving out of that second house, and so it just gets kind of
Sure.
yucky having your kid in a construction zone. It's not very safe. But
Yeah, that can
if you're
change.
young, especially, or single or whatever, I mean, if you can live in the place that you're doing, fix it up yourself, have your friends over, helping with demo, and you're buying
Beer and
$50
pizza.
a pizza. Yeah, beer
Yeah.
and pizza, $100 for $2,000 worth of work. I mean, it's just a no brainer, and they're happy to be helping you and whatever else. But um, that's the way I started, and I just can't imagine having started it any differently than that.
Yeah. What about for someone that's on the fence, like the people that you're talking about? Oh, I wish I want to do that someday, or I wish I was in real estate. They're on the fence. They want to do it, but they haven't made that decision of go or no go. What would you tell them?
It's going to be a similar answer. So I would say most of the people like that are, you're not this way, don't be offended, but most of them are probably renting somewhere. So they haven't had like the feeling of power that comes with owning
Yeah.
a piece of real estate, right? So I'm not particularly a Dave Ramsey guy, but if you're driving a Jag and you don't have enough money to put $10,000 down on a rental, then you need to sell that, and you need to try something different,
Yeah.
and that would be to
Where
put that money
where
toward.
are your priorities?
Yeah, I mean, if that's you and you're just not willing to give up comfort right now,
Mhm.
it's just not. I don't want to tell anybody to give up, but it's like, no, no, I'm gonna keep my comfort. I'm gonna keep my $80,000 a year job, and I'm gonna keep spending all that on me.
Yep.
But I also want to invest. You don't want to invest.
Yeah.
You think you want to invest, but you don't.
Yeah. You
Um,
like the idea of it, but you certainly don't like the execution and like the tacticality of it. That's not for you.
yeah. So, and that's fine. That works for a ton of people.
Totally fine. Just don't complain about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just don't be like, oh
Yeah.
no, oh, wish I had money to invest. Well, you can
Yeah.
do it. You just don't want to.
Yeah. You're living in some of them, living in a loft downtown for 1,800 bucks, 2,500 bucks a month, and they're living the high life, going out every night, loving it, and boy, your life is great. And so, are you gonna spend your money living life now, or are you gonna spend your money to where you just have amazing wealth in the future and you don't have to do it anymore? So we gave up a lot of comfort. We still did just fine, but we gave up a lot of comfort for 5 years where we could have done all kinds of different things. And
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you were
and
living in a
now,
cardboard box. You living in
yeah,
you were living in a construction zone basement. So it was it was one step above cardboard box. But
yes, but we did sacrifice then, and it's really paid off tenfold now, because it's not directly proportionate, but the more you sacrifice up front for the bigger number of years, like I said, I wish we would have done it one more time, and then I would have been even further right now, because
right.
we wouldn't be spending, we wouldn't have the mortgage that we have on our house, and we maybe wouldn't have the vehicles that we have now, but if we'd still dialed back. But at some point, it just starts to slowly shift where you can't afford those things and still do the real estate stuff that you want to do. So yeah, if you're on the fence and you really just need to do a budget. If you're saying I can't afford it, you can probably afford it. I've heard some crazy stories about people that budget down, dial it back, change where they're living, change what they're driving, and they're a year and a half away from being debt free. They're another year and a half away from having $10,000-15,000 saved up. And yeah, it takes 3 years. It's not going to happen in 3 days, but little changes here and there, and a little bit of luck, and start talking to the right people, and
That's right.
and it'll happen for you too. It really will.
That's right. I mean, you and I, we met at like a little cocktail like an impromptu happy hour thing with like an hour's notice. Everybody just kind of got together and we met, exchanged information, and now we transact and do business every month together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the networking piece, shaking the right hands, meeting the right people, putting yourselves in bigger rooms, putting yourself where you're big fish, little pond over here. Take yourself out, be a little fish in a big pond. And I mean, I had very little business being at that table with everybody else, but it was like, I'm here, and I've always done everything I can to put myself in bigger rooms or in conversations, I have no business being, I have no reason to be here. There's no reason I should have got an invite, but I did. And I'm taking advantage of it, making the most of it while I'm here, because everybody at this table, we could all benefit from each other. And if I can take something out of everybody here, not in a bad way, but if we can transact with everybody at this table, this was $50 on old fashions well spent. So, and
that's the same way I feel about this conversation here. I honestly don't feel qualified. I mean, to give advice to anybody. Honestly, first time I've done anything where, like on a wider scale, people are listening to me for some sort of advice. So, I'm truly honored that somebody might take something from the mistakes I've made and the successes I've had, and maybe we'll get some more management out of it.
There we go. Cody, how can people reach out to you or reach out to Hayden Grace? What's the best way for someone to get in contact with you?
So new clients often go through me, also through Kelly. We probably split those 50-50. Kelly Sigler is my business partner on that. We don't have a website. We're still small time, but text, email. My text
in the show notes. I'll put your email in the notes below if anybody wants to get in contact with him.
Yep, perfect. Just more information. We do all kinds of things. It's not just that we expect you to have the perfect house for us and we walk in and manage it. I walk through deals for people that we manage for 2 or 3 clients from California, different places,
nice.
Nationally, that have never set foot on the property. We do walkthroughs, we do pictures, we do advice on how to remodel it. So a lot of people online ask for mentors. I won't spend time every day with you mentoring you, but if you want me to walk through a couple of houses with you to see if they're good fits, I'll walk through them with you, and we'll spend that time for free with the expectation that, hey, if you buy a couple of houses, we'd like to manage them for you, or at least have the opportunity to price that out.
Love it. Love leading with value like that. That's the way to start any new relationships, to bring more to the table than you take away. So Cody, thank you very much. You're honored. I'm stoked. I was so excited that you agreed to be on here, because I know so many people are going to take so much away from all the different facets of everything you're doing. This was an episode I was looking forward to doing for a long time. Thank you. I'll let you get back to your very, very busy time juggling your myriad of real estate empires. So thank you again. Have a good one. I'm sure we'll be talking to you later this afternoon after we get a new house to sell to you.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, later, Cody.